are they running you towards Putin? I mean, these guys are really clever, especially Putin. They know who they're dealing with, right?
Yeah, but here's what they would do.
It starts working between these forces, Ronald.
Yeah. The thing is, what I was always told is just keep your ears open. They really didn't want me talking. Both sides. They would say, keep your ears open. But I have a big mouth. I'm one of these people that I'm going to speak. And it was hard. So I was, in fact, one FBI agent called me a rogue. He says, you're a rogue elephant. You like to deal with, on your own. I said, George, yes, I do. Because if I have somebody else out in front of me, you're going to compromise me. And I can't do that. If you want me, then let's do it this way. Otherwise, I can't do it. And eventually I left the Bureau after that. And I was dealing with Russian Mafia, which is a dangerous, dangerous thing.
Tell us, we was gonna get there with that. So, but let's go back a little bit to the Putin administration. So, what was the goal there? What was your goal? Like, I'm sure these strategies they developed. But what was your role there? What was you doing? If you could speak about it.
Well, there's some stuff I can speak about. Some I can't. It wasn't, I never was involved in looking for intelligence or things of that nature. That was never my role. I was interested in going after the Russian Mafia and arms smuggling. Yeah, that was big. I knew of a lot of arms smuggling coming out of that was being handled via Eastern Europe to Al Qaeda and other groups, and I was really after a lot of that. But in order to do that, you have to have friends. You have to have friends on the inside. You just can't, listen and just, you have to have friends on the inside that are willing to talk. I had some Palestinian Liberation Organization officials that were working with me. I had some good PLO people, and they were eventually, put down. I had different people working with me. And so you're learning. You have to have allies. You just don't go into this business and you're all alone, or you put on a disguise. That's a lot of garbage. Anybody puts on does a boat, when I seen that with one guy that was outside or caught in Moscow, that's not how you operate. You don't operate in the shadows. You operate in the sunlight.
So you would have lost some people along the way, I'm guessing. Good people who was compromised and it didn't go well for them?
No, I never put anybody in jeopardy.
No, I'm not talking about you, but you would have, friends you've
there's someone that what I've been told is some of those PLO people it didn't go well for them in Belarus. That's what I was told. Michael, I'll use his name. I understand this was as of a couple years ago that he was put in jail. One of my, I've lost my sources there. I still have a couple. The ambassador was close to be, and you see what happened to him. He's out. Valery Sepkalo. Valery Sepkalo was in Belarus, and now he's on the run. Lukashenko cracked down on everybody. And in Russia, but Timothy Borodin's still probably involved. He was a friend. Alexander Orlov was close to Putin. He was a friend. I hope he still is. They were good friends of mine. And we talked honestly. We really talk from the heart. When you're talking with somebody, you better be what's right. Don't talk about what's wrong to get secrets out of them. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. And there's been so much, especially in later years, about that oligarch system, about how a lot of oligarchs have been dethroned, they've moved. Things are changing there, and that structure that was put together there about the Russian resources and so forth. So on the back of that, I want to talk about the Russian Mafia. What was your dealings with them, and what happened there? How did you start to infiltrate this area of organized crime?
This came through I'll bet you his name is Igor. This Igor introduced me to a lot of them. He would actually go around. He had some sort of security badge that he would use when he was in Russia, so he couldn't be questioned. But he introduced me to a lot of them, and eventually I would spend the night, and we were sleeping at somebody's house not far from Stadi Arbat, the old Arbat area, and it was a beautiful apartment. It was still under construction, so we slept on mattresses on the floor, but it was very nice, and they treated us nice. We'd go to clubs where the drinks were so outrageous. I mean, you could never afford it. None of us could afford it. But the Russian mafia would pick it up. On this Andre, let's put it that way. We would go to the banya, the spa with the pool, and then we'd go and we'd go to all these places. And up at the meals, they pick up everything. I would meet a lot of the different people, and then there were a lot of Muslims that would come around us at times from various places. One time, and I mentioned this, from the Mitsubishi Bank, the one Arab wanted to get money cleared out of the Mitsubishi Bank. Where was it? It was in dollars in the Mitsubishi Bank, and he was from the UAE. He was from the UAE, I believe. My memory doesn't serve me as well. It could have been someplace else, but I think it was the UAE. And they had a few $1 billion, and they wanted to get out of the dollars and put it into euros or some other fashion, and they didn't want to tip off the Americans.
Yeah. Yeah, I can.
I mean, there was a lot of that stuff. I mean, that was ongoing. Was ongoing. There was so much that was ongoing with the Russian mafia. So I'm making money. When we went out to Siberia, was over the Kamchatka, the king crab, and how they had control of that. And the shipments would go. They would leave port from Kamchatka and go and be bought offshore in America or Canada, places like that. And they'd be paying astronomical fees to the Russian mafia. The same with the caviar. You'd get the beluga caviar, or the Kaluga, excuse me. Kaluga came from the Amur River, and it's very expensive. It's very similar to the beluga. And they had control of that. So there was a lot of that was ongoing.
So, look, what would you say then? Okay. Having this experience with these different strains of organized crime, let's call them, what do you think was the difference between the Russian mafia and the Italian?
I think the Russian mafia is much smarter. They're much more intelligent. They're more resourceful. They don't need it today. It's like the Russians would say, on the outside we may look European, inside we're Asian. And what that would mean is they won't come up with a decision right away. They want to wait and think about it, and that's how they operated. It's the same with the arms smuggling. You had out of Belarus, you had Wesley Michalczek, who was Polish, but he also had a place in Moscow, and he had a place in Warsaw, and he had a place in Belarus that he lived at. And I entered the home of his partner, who was one of the biggest arms smugglers. And I would go to his home for dinner when he wasn't there. I don't want to mention the name of the person that let me in, but we would have dinner in there. And of course, I was rifling through the files, things like that he had there. He didn't have much there because everything was in Malta, but he was operating out of Belarus, Russia, and he still is big. He was big in the arms smuggling into various countries. That's like Victor Butt at Moscow. Now, I think I met him. I'm not sure, at a dinner table. He was the one that was arrested for the smuggling arms. But I don't recall him. I just remember the face. I don't remember talking about that with him. But I met a lot of them. And, they would talk about arms smuggling, and they would get it out. They were talking about diamond smuggling, jewelry, things like that.
So we're going to go, now I know, in your extraordinary life, well, you've met a lot of people. Robert De Niro. Tell us about Robert De Niro.
Actually, he's a very shy guy. I disagree with him politically, but he's a friend. Let's put it that way. I disagree politically. I'm more of a moderate on everything than versus being up to left or right. But he's a nice guy. He's a friend. He gets into his parts that, we discussed, our people. He's a friend. He really is a nice guy, but he's gone through a hard time. He's a human being. He's gone through divorces. He's got children. He's got other things, but he's basically a nice guy.
Yeah, he's done some unbelievable work. So here's a question. So who would you say out of all the actors? I mean, we can go back to George Raft, all of these guys, to Robert De Niro, who plays the best, closest role to the mobsters that you knew. Who do you think is the best? Plays it the closest?
In the Union or
anywhere? I mean, as an actor,
De Niro in Part 2. De Niro in The Godfather Part 2 was excellent. I mean, that played how it really is growing up, and with the Janko oil and things like that. He grew up hard, and eventually he had to kill to survive. And I knew a lot of people like that had to do that. So I thought he was fantastic. Joe Pesci plays how I seen a lot of mobsters and Goodfellas. I knew some of those people. I knew
absolutely.
I knew the Varios. I didn't know Henry Hill. That doesn't. He definitely could not have been mob. I think he exaggerated a lot, but I knew the Varios because I knew Big Paulie and I knew the Peters. The one thing, they were all named Peter and Paul. I knew his son Petey. I knew them quite well, and. But he played how, I'm not saying that he played that part. He was more how when you get somebody that doesn't care, that's how they act. They'd sooner kill you.
Yeah, he played Tommy DeSimone.
Yeah, Tommy DeSimone. Yeah.
But look, let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to more modern times. Now I know a lot of ex-mobsters who've come out the other, some big names have reached out to you. Sammy the Bull Gravano, very, very current. Of course, he was the underboss of John Gotti Sr., involved in Paul Castellano, and the decline and the end of the Gambino family, certainly of that time. What happened with Sammy Gravano?
Well, what happened with Sammy took the rap for his kids. I know his attorney, Tom Farinella, very well. He's a friend of mine, his attorney. And he took the rap for his kids. His kids got involved in the drugs. And as a result, he took the rap for them. He didn't want to, what a father would do. And so that's where he got involved. But the thing is, let's face it, he killed 23 people. How do I feel about, you don't kill. I mean, to kill 23 people and then, get to be free, it's hard for me.
And has he reached out? I mean, he reached out to you. I mean, these guys do, don't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, he did through his attorney, but I wasn't able to do it. I couldn't do it.
Let's talk about another name, John Gotti Jr. Right? Tell us about your dealings with John Gotti Jr.
One of his associates reached out to me, and we met on a couple of occasions, and he wanted me to help, but I couldn't do it. It's not for me, I mean, even if I could, it's not something I would do.
What did he ask you to do, Ron? Can you tell us?
Well, at that time, he was going through his problems with John Alite, and as a result, they wanted me to go after Alite. I don't know John Alite. I'd never met him. I mean, we've heard of each other, but I've never met him, and I don't know anything about him. And they wanted me to go after him, and I just, how am I going to go after him? I don't know anything about the guy.
So, when John Gotti Jr. was, or through whoever was saying, go after John Alite.
Well, they wanted me to help bring him down because he was saying things that may or may not have been true. I don't know the answer to that. So it became a problem for me. If I'm not going to do something if I don't, have no knowledge of it.
And
the things I could say was I knew Joe Piney Armone. No one's going to stand up to Joe Piney Armone and tell him not to do something. Nobody. Joe Piney Armone was a respected man. I wouldn't dare think of that.
So, I've interviewed John Alite, and I know you've been on a documentary where You know,
Yeah.
we're doing some work. You know, we're privileged enough to be doing some work with you, Ronald, and other people on another documentary you've done. Mr. Undercover has to be said. Excellent, excellent work.
Oh, thank you.
John A. Light's on there. I mean, you don't know John A. Light. Have you ever met John ever?
No, never met him. Never talked to him.
So what do you think about this kind of beef between these two guys? You know, between John Gotti and and this and John A. Light. Do you think what do you think about it, Ron? What's your view?
I think what you're running into are various egos on both sides. You run into egos, and when one says you're lying and the other says it's a he said, she said type of attitude, and if I don't know, I'll inject myself with the truth if I know something. But if I don't know it, how am I going to respond either way? I can't do that. How do I do that? I never did that, In other words, I'll be fabricated, and I don't want to start something like that.
And to guys, I mean, I know in your unbelievable journey, you're 70 now, Ron.
Yeah, I'm 75 years old. I'm an old timer, but I'm still working as a private detective.
Congratulations, by the way. It's been a long journey, and you're still here, really.
Yeah,
not really. Congratulations. So, look, in your present day, you're still going. You're still there. Do people still reach out to you, Ronald, for help?
Yeah.
What kind of people are we talking about?
Your law enforcement. I still do pro bono work for the FBI. Pro bono means for free for the FBI, and I do some for other police agencies. In fact, I just a couple of weeks ago, I ended up pulling a child molester off the streets that had children with him. We were going after a client of mine. Said his wife was going with this guy, and I checked his background and found out he was convicted 10 years or last year of child pedophilia and molesting, and he was sentenced to 10 years and given a suspended sentence. Well, I did is I put a legal GPS on the vehicle, and as a result, I found out where they were going and the hotel room, and that the children would sleep with both of them. 3 or 5-year-old and I think a 12-year-old, and I had the Williamsburg police come in on a capias warrant. In other words, it was a warrant for his arrest, and we pulled him off the streets. He's in jail now. He handed them a forged ID, and he was an illegal. I mean, he was an illegal immigrant that came here, and I don't like the word today. I still use the word illegal because it's a violation of the law, and he came here and from El Salvador, and he was supposed to be in the reason they had the capias, he never showed up for probation for over a year. And now we got him off the street. So things happen. I'm glad to get that. Makes me feel good that I was able to get somebody off that was a child molester.
Ronald, it has to be said that your story is supremely unique, to many other mob stories, as it were. It's really unique in the sense your father was a made man, a capo. You was born into that life. You lived that life. You was a mob associate undercover for 17 years. Then went on to work for the contracted to the CIA, the FBI. You've been to Russia. You've worked on the Russian Mafia. You've seen many sides of the coin, as it were. Now, where you are now, so seasoned in your journey, what do you think about organized crime and mafia now as a whole?
It's a cancer. It's a cancer that's still there, and it's not going to stop. As long as the public is willing to put up with our own wants, we want more, we want this, we want that, we want better for ourselves instead of thinking of each other, you're always going to have that. That's a way of life. I don't see how you can stop it. If you want what your neighbor has because you don't have it, that's how it goes, and they're going to make sure you get it. It's like the drug business. It's out of control. worldwide. You're heading toward an implosion on this planet. We see it happening, and I don't see a solution to it. America's it's gone. I mean, you're going to see some sort of revolution here, one way or another. That we're going to have to pick up the pieces. It's like what Einstein said. They asked him how World War III would be fought. He says he doesn't know, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. And I mean, he was so correct.
So, Mafia, people would say, goes right the way back to the old country. Some would argue, hey, it was there when the conquerors come on Sicily. We had to look after our own, so we protected our own, and and it comes from these roots and all that stuff. So is there, and it's honourable and men of honour and all this. So is there anything good? Is there anything?
Well, the validity of what happened early on is correct. They were looking after their own. And that's where it came from. And when the Italians came to America, the police were all British or Irish, and they had their problems. So they had to organize their own groups. As a result, that was their protection. Later on, of course, it got out of control. It's like anything else. You let something fester for too long. It's one thing. Once you've reached your goal, then stop it. But it doesn't work that way. It continues. And that's how it happened. And then you had the rise of the gangs, and it's like the Jewish Mafia, Irish, gangs, things like that. Maybe not as secretive and clandestine. Well, the Jewish Mafia has been the most clandestine. And I always said, remember how the Cosa Nostra would bow their heads to the Jewish Mafia? They were the ones that were really the dominant factor in the background.
Yeah. This is going back to the days of the Black Hand.
It was always,
So here's a question, and you're definitely the man to ask it. Of all the great guests I've had the privilege to interview, what do you say to the people then, Ronald, who say, well, hey, I get it about these mobsters, organised crime and all this stuff they're doing, but to me, in my life, where I am, I think the government are corrupt, I think politicians, I don't trust them, and I think they're bigger crooks. What do we say? What's the answer to these people? What's the truth there?
They're all crooks. I can't decipher. I mean, I just seen so much corruption that I don't know if there's an answer anymore. Corruption seems to rule. I've seen it in politics all my life. I don't care if it's Democrat, Republican in this country, or I've seen it elsewhere. Canada. I can go on in countries. We have our problems. As long as mankind doesn't learn how to live with each other. And I'm not talking through some socialistic banner or, it's like the Bolsheviks. They took over Russia. They were the smallest group of all of them. But they had the loudest voice. And they made sure they controlled the media centers. Once you control the media centers, once you start screaming and putting your people in the right time, they'll overcome the timid individuals that are out there. And that's how it operates. And that's what you're seeing here. You're seeing it elsewhere. It's going through the world right now.
So look, a lot of people are going to be concerned by what you've said there, but I'm not, a lot of people, they're seasoned, they've lived a life, they see a lot of things, and they're asking these internal questions, especially now when the world is going through a transition. But what's the solutions then, Ronald? So what do we do?
People have to learn to live with each other. If we can't learn to live with each other and respect each other, respect is an answer. Instead of having that greed where we want something else, we have to learn to live within our needs, not look at our wants, but our needs. And then we'll be more successful. But I don't know how we can stop it. That's the problem. And I don't like being to portend omens of ominous times, but I don't see the answer. I wish I did. I don't want to say something that may not be correct, and I bet outside of what I see, and I don't know the answer. We've let greed run amok, and it's taken over. I mean, sure, you have the majority of the people are good people. That's the problem. The vast majority are good. We're not out there. It's not neighbor eating neighbor. There's small groups that take advantage of our goodwill. And that's the problem. Unless we stand up to these groups or politicians, I don't care what party they come from or that. I'm not interested in that. But people, you have to elect people that care about people and get rid of them if they don't. You have to have representatives for yourself. They have to represent your values and the rights of people. And you can't let money talk. Like we used to say, money talks and bullshit walks, and unfortunately, you got to let you got to elect the right people. And we're not doing that. We're stupid.
And you, Ronald, in a unbelievable life where you've had to contend with so much, have you any regrets?
No, I have no regrets. I'm glad what I did. If I go down tomorrow, I wouldn't say fearless, but I'm not that fearful. I'm fearful for my family. That's one of the reasons I came to Williamsburg, because my family's protected here. I have the CIA training center just a couple miles away. And so we have good security here. For them, myself, no, I'm not that, I've lived a good life. I'm content with what I did. If I go tomorrow, I go tomorrow. I really feel that way. I've lived a good life.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of what I did.
And here's a question. If you had one bit of wisdom to give to everyone out there from all the unbelievable waters you've had to travel, the valleys you've had to traverse, the dark corners you've had to navigate out of. If you had one piece of advice or one wisdom or learning as a takeaway for everyone, what would that be, Ronald?
Respect each other. Humble yourself. Respect each other. There's nothing wrong with humility. Humility is a fine attribute. Don't come off with an ego. If you're coming off with an ego, here I am and there you are, you're asking for trouble. You've already turned somebody against you. Come out with respect, a shake hand. Handshake and a warm greeting.
Ronald, that is so very well said, and I'd like to say to all the viewers out there, thank you for tuning in to another unbelievable episode of the Stephen Gillen Crime Files. We're now live on Roku, Amazon Fire, and LG TV, and we'll be migrating now also to other major broadcasting platforms. Now, I have to go back and I have to say to you, Ronald, that this has been an unbelievable privilege, an unbelievable interview. There's so much jewels in there. So very, very unique story. I'd just like to say thank you for inviting us into your life, sharing this unbelievable content that you have, and for coming on the platform.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.